guys, so today I'm going to talk about my London flat hunting experience. I love watching other people's apartment hunting videos and like looking at different spaces, and I was planning to do something similar, but unfortunately I ended up doing virtual showings from Toronto, so I couldn't film any of the places that I toured. Like I was thinking of doing screen recordings, but it just never worked out and I always forgot. But anyways, I hope that this is still going to be an interesting video. I'm going to walk you guys through the process I went to find my flat and some tips and tricks that I learned along the way. I'm mainly going to be comparing it to the Toronto rental market because that's where I have experience in, and I also used to work at a real estate agency for about 3-4 years while I was in university. So I do know kind of like the ins and outs of how agents work and pricing in at least the Toronto region. So here are some things I think you need to know about renting in London. So first of all, timing. So property definitely moves very fast in London, and I have only experienced it during the pandemic when it was considered slower. So I can only imagine how fast it would go normally. I think there's a few reasons for that. One is just that there's just a sheer volume of people coming in and out of London from Europe and like from Canada or the US, so it's just like a hot spot. So of course, you know, property is gonna go very fast. And another reason for that, I think, is the huge variation in quality of the place that you're looking for. So let's say you have a budget of about like, I don't know, 900 to 1,200 per month for a one bedroom or a bachelor. On one end of the spectrum, you could have these really old buildings that's been renovated to become self-containing bachelors, and they have very old furniture, and it's literally like just a room with a bed and like the kitchen's like right next to you. Or on the other end, you have kind of these like beautiful Victorian buildings or new builds that are very desirable for, you know, people coming to London and kind of what you imagine a London lifestyle to be. And the demand on the spectrum is just so much higher. I think it's just in comparison to Toronto, where it's not as an old of a city, so a lot of the bachelors and one bedrooms are all in these new high-rises, and they're all very similar. So although yes, the price is high, or before the pandemic the price was high, the quality was pretty like uniform. Yeah, so when I was looking in my price range, I did find like a lot of units, but a lot of them I would say are kind of in this end of the quality spectrum. And when something would pop up was in my price range that was in this end, it would go so fast. So definitely, I think most people, like unless you don't really care about the aesthetics or how the room looks where you live, the units on this spectrum definitely go really fast. And also it depends on the time of year that you're looking. So I would most suggest avoiding around September time. That's when a lot of students come back into the city. There's generally a lot of people moving around at that time, and also during the summer when it's like most desirable to move. It's definitely a hot time in the market. Another thing that kind of falls under timing is when you should start looking. So I got mixed messages from agents that I've spoken to. There's some people I contacted and they said that, you know, you should have started looking 2 months earlier. And there was agents that told me that I should be looking like 1 to 2 weeks before. But yeah, I get where they're coming from. So generally tenants have to give their landlord 2-month notice before they're moving out. So definitely around the 2-month mark, you're gonna find units that pop up onto the market for 2 months later. And if they're really nice, then they'll probably go right away, like the day or like the day after they're posted for 2 months later. And then at the same time, there's obviously a lot of units that, you know, if things happen and new units come up, or the landlord or agent waited till closer to when the tenant was going to move out to post it. So there's definitely that variation. If you have the luxury of looking earlier, definitely start looking earlier. You never know what you could find, and also you won't have to feel like you're in a rush to maybe sacrifice a place that is only okay to find a great place that you love. So I started looking 2 months before, but I actually like found the place I'm currently at, I think 1 or 2 weeks before. The real estate agent definitely did want me to move in earlier because the unit was available, but I couldn't because I was in Canada. And if there was a competing offer against mine, that they definitely would have given it to that person, which I did experience was another unit that they had an offer for to start before me, and they took that instead just because of that. So next I want to talk about the difference between using an agent and going directly with the landlord. You can definitely use both, but I think it's important to know the difference and to remember that when you're looking. So I think the major benefit of going with an agent is that they ensure all the legal responsibilities are met, and generally speaking, it's usually not a scam. Like, the place probably exists. But it's important to remember that the agent works for the landlord and not for you, and they make a commission from you renting the unit. So in Toronto, that's typically the first month rent, and if the listing agent, the agent that is leasing the property, and the agent that shows you the property is different, then the commission gets split. I'm not 100% sure if that's how it works here as well, but I think it's definitely a similar commission scheme. So I think you can see that there are definitely some underlying motivations here for the agent. I'm not saying that every agent, is thinking of like tricking you or anything like that, but they're definitely like, their goal is to get you to rent a unit. So don't expect the agent to kind of provide you all the information unless you ask for it. Definitely do your own research. For example, I met an agent that kind of specialized in the Notting Hill area, and he showed me a couple of units, and there was one unit I was particularly interested in. It was just larger than the rest, but it was sub-ground, and I really seriously considered it, but after doing my research, I found out that like sub-ground level units in London are typically really damp and really cold in the winter, and they usually have a mold issue, so like a lot of people advise against it. So yeah, definitely do your own research on that aspect. And also, I wasn't able to go see these places personally, so definitely I felt like there was a higher risk when I was doing these virtual showings, because I couldn't like see any of the other tenants that might be in the building or the area, or like if there was a noise level issue, or like testing the water taps and stuff like that. So really advisable to go visit the unit yourselves and ask lots of questions. But if you're not able to, you can pick something like mine where it's like a big new building, and I read reviews of the building online, so yeah, I was pretty confident in making my choice. So just something to know, if like you're looking for properties and this one agent is pushing you to show the property, you're not obligated to stay with that agent, and it might more benefit you a little bit more to like go and look for units yourself. You can definitely do both. I think that's basically what I did. I did both. I got agents that sent me properties and showed me, and I also went out and looked for it on my own. Agents definitely have more information and can give you exactly what you're looking for if you tell them. So definitely do both if you're looking. And then on the other hand, you have landlords. So you can go directly with a private landlord, so someone who's listing the property without an agent, and rent directly from them. One benefit for sure is that it might be a bit cheaper because you're dealing with the landlord directly and they don't have to pay any fees for an agent. But it's definitely a little bit more riskier. You are responsible for reviewing that all the legal requirements are right, and like the contract is good. And also there's risk of a scam, like they might not own the place, or like it might not exist. So never send anyone money before you've seen the place and you ensure that they own it and they're the actual landlord. Especially on Facebook Marketplace, there are so many people out there with scams. Like I'll talk about the platforms you can search, but Facebook is popular. It's a popular way to find these private landlords, but also there are so many scammers in London looking to scam people out of their deposits, and yeah, stay safe, guys. So in terms of pricing, I noticed that's kind of different in London as well. They do a weekly price and they also have a monthly price, but the monthly price is 4.33 times the weekly price. So it's kind of confusing sometimes that I have to convert it. I'm not sure why they do that actually. Some websites list the monthly price, some websites list the weekly price. So you just have to kind of calculate both and just remember what your budget is for that. And when calculating your budget, so there is definitely the monthly rent, but also on top of that, there's gonna be electricity, gas, water. Sometimes I think electricity and gas are bundled, but for me, for example, it's not together. So I have 3 utility bills, and then there's also a council tax bill. I don't quite understand what a council tax bill is, but it's very high. So all these three can add to your monthly costs about, I would say, up to like 150 to 200 pounds, depending on the place and the area that you live in. For myself, for example, the council tax is almost 90 pounds. My water, electricity, gas ranges each between 25 to 30 pounds a month. So that's almost another like 80 pounds on top of that. So in addition to my rent, I pay an extra 160 to 170 pounds a month on utilities slash tax, I guess. Yeah, so definitely keep that into consideration when looking for your place. So in addition, of course, there's income requirements for renting a place. So typically your annual income has to be at least 30 times the monthly cost. And of course you can have a guarantor, but I think they have to be in the UK and their income has to be 33 times the monthly cost. So now that you found the place and you're ready to apply, typically there is a application deposit that you have to put down. I'm not really sure how they calculate it, but it goes towards your security deposit when you secure the place. It basically guarantees that if you get approved during this process, then you for sure will take this place. You're not gonna they go through the approval process and you're like, nope, never mind, I don't want this place. This deposit is to basically guarantee that you're serious. In my case, I think if you don't get approved, you get the deposit back, but I think there are cases where this deposit, if you don't get approved, then it's gone. So yeah, definitely make sure you're qualified before you start applying for a property. And after your application goes through, you have to put down the rest of your security deposit, which is typically 5-month rent, minus whatever you put down for the deposit, and the first month rent. Next, I wanted to briefly talk about locations. So I didn't really know London that well. I rented this place before I even got here. Originally, I was planning to come here, sublet a place, or get an Airbnb for 1 or 2 months, and then while I was here, I would look for a place. But it just got a little too troublesome because I had to quarantine. So quarantining for 2 weeks and then looking after, it just didn't feel like I was gonna find a place. I did book an Airbnb actually that I canceled last minute because I found this place. But yeah, it just depends. I knew coming into it that location wasn't going to be the deciding factor for me. What mattered to me more was just having a large enough space to work in, a nice place with a lot of bright light, and close enough to the city that I can commute easily. So this place is in zone 2-3-ish, and it takes me about 20 minutes to get into the city center, and the tube is literally downstairs. So I thought it checks most of the boxes for me. So for location, I think it just if you know the city well, like London, you probably know the different areas and different vibes that you want. So you can definitely look within that range or somewhere that's easy to commute to the area that you like. But I just don't know yet. So I definitely want to explore the city more and definitely move to a different area when this lease is up. There's definitely a lot of different places that you can look for rentals in the UK or in London. The websites that I used were Rightmove and Zoopla, I think. And in the end, I think I just used Rightmove because I found the easiest to navigate, and there was always plenty of listings getting updated every day, and I would just see a repeat on the other websites, so I just stuck with Rightmove. I also tried Gumtree, which is kind of like the Kijiji Craigslist of the UK, more private landlords. There's definitely still a lot of agents, but I found that the response rate I got from Gumtree wasn't very good. So individual landlords, of course, are not going to get back to you if they already rented the place. Meanwhile, agents will still get back to you because they want to show you other properties, even if the one that you contacted about is already gone. So those are 3 places you can kind of look. And then also I tried to look on Facebook Marketplace. So there is a lot of Facebook groups for renting in London. I was also considering subletting at one point. So there's a lot of London subletting groups, but just be careful. There are a lot of scams, and when you join these groups, you're gonna see a lot of people posting their experiences about the scams or the scammers that try to contact them. So yeah, just be wary if you're doing it through Facebook Marketplace or even Gumtree actually. So I stopped filming, then I realized I didn't really share my personal experience. Yeah, which was the point of the video. But if you're still here, here's basically how I found my place. So I started searching for my place early, I think September. Like I've been looking on and off since I decided that I was gonna move here, just to like see what's in the market, see what I liked, and boy was I discouraged. It was nothing like I was imagining. There's all these like really dingy rooms, and anything was in my price range was just not okay. Or like it didn't get me excited to move to London. So there's like occasionally where I would see a nice place and I'm like, okay, there's hope. There is these places in the market for this price. I just need to find them. Anyways, so like after looking, I kind of got a vision for what I wanted. I knew my price range, which originally was actually only between 800 to 1,100, but by my video, you know that I went up to 1,250. And part of my reasoning for that was like I was getting so discouraged at looking at these places, and this was a place that I really liked and I could see myself working here for like the next year, and I knew that this was the time that I was going to be at home a lot. So I was like, you know what, I'd rather spend more on rent, and like all the money I save from going out can go towards rent. So yeah, so this is a year that I'm gonna get to know London and hopefully find a different area to live in, and also maybe like a cheaper area to live in. I don't know, we'll see about cheaper. But yeah, so I started looking within that price range of I think it was 800 to 1,000, and I set the settings to 0 to 1 bedroom, and within kind of like zone 3, zone 2, and zone 1 of London. Yeah, which like there was nothing really in zone 1 that was within that price range. And one of my other requirements is I didn't want to do house sharing. If you're okay with house sharing, there are a lot of options actually, like under like 800 pounds per month in some really nice houses. But that's what I was looking for. I was also looking for a place with a lot of light. Yeah, so I was looking, I viewed a few places with an agent that specialized in property in Notting Hill. So after those showings in Notting Hill, I honestly didn't see much that was within the city that I liked and was within my price range. There were a few places, but I don't know why I never got a response from a lot of them. I think maybe they just got off the market that fast, or like, you know, they saw that I had a Canadian number and could tell I wasn't like, assumed that I wasn't serious or something. I don't know, but I reached out a few more places in the city. I didn't really hear back until I stumbled on a unit in this kind of like building complex, and I really liked the vibes of it. Like I could tell that it's a new build, and it was a relatively safe choice. Like although I would say like this black, you know, framing and everything is not quite what I like. I like more of an airier white vibe, but I could tell that, you know, it was definitely not going to be a bad choice. If you know what I mean. Like I know this is like a great place, but I'm just trying to say like it was definitely a less risky option in that it's a new building. You know, I talked to my boyfriend about the area. He said it's relatively safe, and I knew that this kind of building is not going to have problems with like a lot of noise or like things being broken, etc., etc. So this was a property that I actually wanted to apply for, but there was someone else who also applied for it, and they decided to go with that one instead. So yeah, so I didn't end up getting it. But then I started looking in this area and in this building complex. There was actually quite a few units for rent. I saw another one that was in the building complex, but the issue was that one was in a lower level and faced kind of inwards to like the collection of buildings, so the view wasn't as nice. Meanwhile, the other one I saw had a pretty nice view. It was one of like the buildings that faced outward, so I was kind of obsessed with that one, or a unit similar to that one. So I was looking and I found a unit that was slightly better, faced not like directly outward, but it was like there was a view from the window that you could see out, and I decided to message the agent, and you know, that's when I started negotiating the price, because the unit I was looking at was going for 1,200 pounds, and I have seen other units in this complex that was going for that much for a bachelor. So at that point I think it was listed for 1,235, but it wasn't that much more, but you know, like out of principle I wanted to get it down to 1,200. So I asked if that was possible, and the agent said that he spoke with that landlord and they couldn't do that, but they had another unit which had a much better view, which was this unit, and they were listing it for 1,380, and they offered it to me for 1,250. And at that point, I think I was just like, you know what, I think it's worth it, you know, 50K more. And this was like the best view I seen, and the layout was a little bit better than the other units in the sense that the kitchen is not part of, how do I say this? It's not part of the unit as a whole, and it's kind of separate behind that wall. Yeah, so I decided that, you know, I was gonna go for this listing. And here I am. So yeah, that was my experience and tips for renting in London. If you want to see kind of what my flat looks like, you can click the link right here. I just published a flat tour, and let me know if you have any questions and I'll try my best to answer them. Or if you have any advice for me for the next time I look. I'm definitely still a newbie to flat hunting in London, but yeah, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.